By the way, Kristen Sinema came out. The only part of that bill I liked at all was the tax on carried interest. And Sinema came out last night and said the one change she has to have is no, hey, no offense, Sinema's gone full hedge fund, full VC, right?
Steve Bannon happens to be one of those rare conservatives that has for years spoken out against the carried interest loophole, which is a major gift to the wealthy, a major tax break for the wealthy. But in recent days, more members of the Republican Party have actually started to line up behind Bannon on this issue. Now, why? Well, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has repeatedly stated that President Donald Trump wants the carried interest loophole to be scrapped as part of a sweeping tax bill. And before I give you the details, Cenk, how much do you believe this?
Well, there's really good reason not to believe it, and we'll share that with you as well. But as usual, there's plenty of blame to go around for both parties in this. That's why it's been around for decades.
Definitely. So look, in case you're not familiar with what the loophole does, I don't blame you. I too am not wealthy and I too do not benefit from the carried interest loophole. But basically it allows hedge funds and private equity firms to classify a part of their income as capital gains, which are unfairly taxed at a much lower rate than general income, right? So carried interest refers to the income that investment managers collect from their funds, which is typically 20% of profits. Under current tax law, that income is taxed as a capital gain, which has a top tax rate of 20% for long-term gains versus the highest rate of 37% for regular income, such as the money that workers receive in their paychecks. So shockingly, several Republican lawmakers told The Hill that they support Donald Trump's plan to scrap that tax break. Here's Representative Dan Muser, who says that Trump thinks it's a little unfair that one sector of industry gains a lot by using carried interest as part of their income and paying lower capital gains. President Trump doesn't want to see anything perceived as unfair. That's kind of a funny line, but nonetheless, certainly for the wealthy, he wants to make sure that all of America gets the benefit of his tax bill, and I agree with him. And he's not the only Republican. Let's go to Republican Congressman Rick Allen, who says, we get accused of just looking after the wealthy. Well, that's for good reason, but let me continue with his statement. And this would include the wealthy. With the momentum in the country, I don't think folks will mind paying a little more to make sure we get this done. Senator John Kennedy, though, is a little bit on the fence, a little iffy on this whole notion. He says, I haven't made a decision about carried interest. I know the way it works. Frankly, there are good arguments on both sides. If we end up needing the money, could I vote to get rid of carried interest? Yeah, I could. But before we get too excited, I do want to remind you all that in the first debate in regard to Donald Trump's 2017 tax bill, there was a lot of talk about doing away with corporate tax loopholes and other various deductions that the rich get to take advantage of. These types of deductions and loopholes effectively allow for incredibly successful and profitable corporations to get away with paying zero in federal taxes. And so when all was said and done, they did not get rid of those deductions. They didn't get rid of the carried interest loophole. All of that remained in effect. The only thing that we got out of that tax bill were tax cuts. The majority of those tax cuts did benefit corporations and the wealthy. Yes, there were some working class people who benefited from those tax breaks as well, but certainly not to the same extent. Cenk.
Yeah, so I want to explain to you guys why this is so unfair. So your income, whether you're a doctor, accountant, etc., gets taxed at 37%, as Anna explained. The hedge fund guys and the private equity guys, by the way, the richest people in the world that are doing the investments for other incredibly wealthy people, they're not investing their money. If they're investing their money, they get capital gains. I don't even think capital gains tax being at 20% is fair, but that's where it is. But in this case, they're investing other people's money and they're getting income for it, salary for it. There's no reason why that shouldn't be 37%. And they're like, no, just because they're bankers, it gets to be 20%. It's just cheating. It's totally, utterly cheating. And both sides know it. And both sides love it. So that's why, oh, the Democrats are really against the carried interest loophole. Oh, golly gee, Kristen Sinema voted against it. And Schumer, in his quote at the time about it, said, well, there was nothing we could do. Of course, they always say there's nothing they could do, right? And if, by the way, if it wasn't Sinema, it would have been Manchin. If it wasn't Manchin, it would have been Coons. Why do you think it's been around for decade after decade, no matter if it was a Democratic president or a Republican president? If you think the Democrats really wanted to get rid of it, why didn't they get rid of it when Obama had his supermajority? Why didn't they do almost anything when Obama had a supermajority? Imagine if Trump had a supermajority where he didn't have to worry about the filibuster. They would have changed every law in the country by now, right? But the Democrats were like, there's nothing we could, there's everything you could do. And they didn't do it on purpose, okay? So they're gigantic liars. Now, how about Republicans? Since everybody in the country has binary brain, that must mean the Republicans are angels, right? No, the Republicans are even worse on this. Why does Sinema's vote matter? Because every Republican voted no. Every Republican was like, well, of course, private equity and hedge fund managers cheating, and then you guys have to pay higher taxes to make up for it, the average American. Obviously, you're not my donor. Those guys are my donors. So every Republican senator is a total and utter crook on this issue. That's why you see them going, I mean, if Trump makes us, I guess I'll have to consider it, but I really don't want to. Those guys are so good with bribes, right? And Trump, last time, oh, I'm gonna get rid of all the loopholes. I'm gonna get rid of carried interest loophole, just like he's doing now. And when they came time to cut the taxes, they're like, chop it, 35% for a corporate tax rate, bring it all the way down to 21. The Democrats secretly agree with us. It'll be easy to pass. Well, how about all those loopholes you said you were gonna take away? That's for suckers. We just say that for marketing, right? Look, if they pass Trump's new tax cut proposal, it would cost us at least $4 trillion, and unbiased groups have already done the math on it. In that new one, middle income Americans and poor Americans would see their taxes actively go up, not down. Your taxes would go up, and then if at the end they're like, all right, now we chopped down the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%, but we took away the carried interest loophole. Brother, you just put a $4 trillion hole in the debt, and you're making us pay higher taxes, so that just taking away this one loophole is not good enough. That's just marketing. But very likely they won't even do that. It's just marketing ahead of time to get people to say, well, look at Trump being a populist hero. He's gonna get rid of the carried interest loophole, and Steve Bannon agrees. It's like, believe it or not, I actually believe Steve Bannon because he's been consistent on this. I don't believe Trump at all. I think he's totally lying, and if history's any guide, he'll screw you again on behalf of his corporate donors, just like he did last time. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below, because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.